Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Atri Mineshni. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we take a look back at stories concerning the tech sector here in Arizona, from growth in jobs to celebrating our connection to the stars.
Arizona ranks high as a dangerous state for bicyclists, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. But a team of engineers and students at Northern Arizona University want to make cycling safer with a sensor that picks up on dangers, according to Cronkite News' Atria Mineshni.
A sensor
that is the brain of the whole system.
To revolutionize biking safety,
we're going to see a change right here.
Is coming out of an engineering lab at NAU. A dedicated team of students have been working on these sensors since last year.
Like on a weekly basis, we probably spend like 10 hours a week at least working on it.
The idea started back in 2018, when vehicles with safety technology were becoming popular. The engineering team decided to try similar technology on a bicycle.
So that's why we thought that would be a good opportunity for us to start a project that we study how do we connect those bicycles together to build a network for cyclists.
The students did hands-on work to figure out how to develop efficient sensors.
Also coming up with the layout for the system container was pretty fun because we had to figure out how to optimize it so it was space efficient and there's no like overheating with any of the components and stuff. So
figuring all this out is meant to make cycling more enjoyable and safer. Cycling in the U.S. isn't a common way to commute, but here in Flagstaff, about 8% of people use bikes to get around.
We kind of have this category of bicyclists that we call interested but concerned, where maybe they're interested in using a bike, but if they don't feel safe on the facility, they likely won't.
The bike sensors could help. Each sensor identifies potential hazards and detects bumps in the road.
So if there's a crack or like a stick that you run over, it has an X, Y, and Z axis, so however you run over it, those axes will change.
By running some initial tests, the students have found that
so this is a pretty rough road.
There are lots of cracks in the bike lanes in the Flagstaff area. The sensors are paired with a mobile app, and once the hazard is detected, the cyclist will be notified of its location so they can avoid it and ride safely.
We're doing this project to show people where is a bump so the government or the clients will know there is a bump they need to fix or there's a very big bump so you need to watch out.
Ho and his team hope that cycling becomes a safe and popular form of transportation with this technology.
If we can provide safer, informed cycling environment that the people are willing to use cycling as their daily transportation mode.
In Flagstaff, Atria Mineshni, Cronkite News.
The next steps for these engineers are to create a prototype bike and potentially manufacture it in the future.
Phoenix could become the next biggest tech hub as technology industry in the state grows rapidly. Mackenzie Allen Charmley has more on how increasing tech job demands could affect Arizona's economy.
Arizona's tech economy is growing fast, and so is the demand for tech jobs. According to a recent report by the Computing Technology Industry Association, Phoenix is listed as the number 10 city for tech job gains in 2021, adding 1,008 positions just last year.
The impact is that we're becoming one of the major centers in the country for technology and manufacturing.
The Arizona Technology Council supports and empowers tech companies and says low tax rates, cheaper cost of living compared to other tech hub cities, and our great weather are all important factors for the shift.
All of those things make it a very attractive place for companies to either start, grow, or locate.
With the growing job demand in tech, businesses like Gentech help prepare the community and the youth with the skills they need for the evolving tech industry.
Having them come here and work hands-on, so they're working with a lot of different technologies. They're working on computer hardware, software, but they're also developing their soft skills as well, so their communication skills, their teamwork, their collaboration.
Gentech offers STEM workshops and trainings available to students and older generations to prepare for jobs with companies like GM and Intel, who are already investing in the state.
We are just at the knee of the curve, if you will, when it comes to the growth of the technology industry. You know, we've been going like this now for several years. I think it's going to go like this.
In Phoenix, Mackenzie Allen Charmley, Cronkite News.
The city of Dallas had the top tech gains in the State of the Tech Workforce Report, with more than 5,300 jobs created in 2021.
About 4 million passengers took to the sky from Phoenix Sky Harbor last year, and all those planes landing and taking off leave behind a carbon footprint. But as Cronkite News reporter Atria Maneshny explains, some airlines are starting to use sustainable aviation fuel to try and help.
It's no secret people are back to traveling by air during the pandemic.
Before COVID, 2 or 3 times a year, but today is the first trip in over 2 years. So.
And some people have been traveling a lot.
I travel about every 2 months or so.
For some travelers, taking a plane comes down to convenience and speed.
So I live in Florida, and my dad used to live in Virginia, and I had to choose between a 15-hour drive or a 2-hour flight.
But as millions of people fly every year, there's an impact from carbon emissions. The aviation industry accounts for 2.5% of human-made carbon emissions. That's according to Our World in data. Why does this matter? Carbon emissions contribute to climate change, which is causing rising temperatures, sea level increase, droughts, and more. Without any changes, aviation could consume 22% of the world's total carbon budget by 2050. So some airlines are turning to sustainable aviation fuel as a solution.
So when people are talking about sustainable fuel for airplanes, most of the time they're talking about liquid fuels that would be made from some sort of biological source. So a fermentation product could be corn, it could be used waste oil, and the like.
Sustainable aviation fuel is a drop-in fuel. That means it can be shipped and blended with traditional jet fuel.
We're going to recirculate carbon atoms that already exist by having plant life fix carbon atoms into their cellular structure, and then we're going to brew that up into a combustible fuel that can be easily transported and then used to power an airplane.
Airlines such as American, Southwest, JetBlue, United, and KLM, to name a few, have all made a commitment to use sustainable aviation fuel in their fleet. United made history as the first airline to fly a passenger plane on 100% sustainable aviation fuel in December of last year. In Phoenix, Atria Maneshny, Cronkite News.
The U.S. Department of Energy, Transportation, and Agriculture have launched the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Grand Challenge. Some of their main goals are to make sustainable aviation fuel more cost-effective and widely available to the aviation industry. The Phoenix Police Department recently donated 2 retired police robots to Arizona State University's School of Engineering. Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky spoke with some members of the school about what these 2 robots could add to students' education.
Previously, the robots were used to go into potentially hazardous situations, to defuse bombs and find other dangerous devices. Now, these mechanical workhorses are finding a second career, teaching, or more specifically, using their insides for science.
A big problem with studying robotics is that complex robots are hard to get your hands on.
Oftentimes, the robotic systems that students have access to are relatively low-cost and simpler robots.
The small robots that students work on in the classrooms are a good starting point, but many of them are nowhere near as complex as these 2 bomb-detecting robots who come from the real world.
In research labs and in the classroom, when we build different types of robots, probably reliability is not really the most important character we want on top of the list. But here, if you're really using these bomb detection and bomb removal robots in real world, reliability is probably the top priority.
These robots here give students at Arizona State University valuable hands-on experience with dealing with robotics. So it's safe to say, while these robots no longer serve their designed purpose, their purpose now lies within their design.
The systems in these robots are very sophisticated. ASU engineering students with many focuses, mechanical, electrical, computer science, or even artificial intelligence, will be able to tear apart and modify these robots to understand all of the interdisciplinary work from many fields that it takes to build just one robot.
My club actually had a SWAT robot, a bomb disarming robot, and we played around with it, gutted it, redid the insides, and it was very helpful.
Even though the robots are not being studied right now, Wenlong Zhang is certain these robots will have a long future of educating students at the university.
The robots may not even look similar to what they look like right now, down the road, 5 years, 10 years. And I think more importantly, the impact of these robots will be long-lasting, just because it basically just bridges the gap for our students from their classroom to the real world.
The robots are currently awaiting a decision on their future. They could be used in a professor's lab for research, or perhaps given to a student club or organization to give undergraduate engineering students hands-on experience. In the studio, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
Scientists are excited about a historic moment approaching for humanity. The Webb Space Telescope is expected to send its first images back to Earth. Cronkite News reporter Juan Uresti speaks with two scientists about the importance of what these images could reveal.
When this thing got launched, it was just incredible. And what was even more incredible was when it got launched, everything has worked. You know, there's a lot of suspense going with checking things out when it gets up there, because if anything is wrong, you've got to figure out how to work around it. You can't fix it. But so far, fingers crossed, wood knocked on, everything has been working great.
Webb is an infrared telescope with an unprecedented scientific power due to the size of its primary mirror and the extreme sensitivity and precision of its 4 scientific instruments, which help reach farther into space and explore more planets.
We're going to understand better our place in the cosmos. We're going to characterize and maybe even find Earth-like exoplanets and understand them better. Do they have atmospheres like their own, or like our own? Do they have water in the atmosphere? Do they have oxygen in the atmosphere? Do they even have ozone in the atmosphere?
If any of these 3 elements are discovered, scientists believe that there is a great possibility to find life in other planets. In Phoenix, Juan Uresti, Cronkite News.
It's even possible scientists could get the first images from the Webb telescope this coming June.
Your favorite member benefit is getting better and bigger.
This is wonderful.
Over the next year, Passport is adding new shows and doubling the number of episodes for you to stream.
They give us all that they've got.
From your favorite cooking and travel series.
Even the stairs are breathtaking.
To history specials and award-winning documentaries. Better and bigger.
That really is the fun part.
Stream on any device with Passport on the PBS Video app.
Dr. Cyan Proctor is a local community college professor and the first Black woman to pilot a spacecraft. Ashley Hudgeleski was at an event at South Mountain Community College where they honored Dr. Proctor for her remarkable work.
Do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2022 as Dr. Cyan Proctor Day.
Proctor is a decades-long geology teacher and researcher at South Mountain Community College. In 2021, she fulfilled her childhood dream of being an astronaut when she piloted a commercial flight into space.
Neither of my parents had college degrees, and so for me to be able to go and achieve this was such a big thing, not just for myself, but for my family.
At a presentation at South Mountain Community College, Dr. Proctor spoke to about 40 people regarding her journey to success. She highlighted a poem that she videotaped for her application for the commercial space flight.
Consider sending a poet who knows how to rhyme. So let's drop the mic and close the capsule door. But please make sure Dr. Proctor is on board.
Dr. Proctor created Space to Inspire. The goal? To create a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive, or JEDI space, and encourage other artists and poets to get involved.
And one of my big goals was to bring as many people along on this journey as possible. And I thought, what better way to do that than through art and poetry?
On her journey, she brought some pieces from the Space to Inspire artists and poets. During this presentation, she returned the art pieces to their owners.
It is such a pleasure to be here, to be able to give you back your art and poetry today. Thank you.
In Phoenix, Ashley Hudgeleski, Cronkite News.
92 years ago, Pluto was discovered at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, using telescopes, cameras, and comparing images side by side. Nick Shesky went to the observatory to hear about how some of the science behind astronomy has changed, while some still remains the same.
In the early 20th century, astronomers knew there was something out there, and even though they couldn't see it, they could see the effect of its gravity on the planet Uranus.
It wasn't moving like it should. Based on its size and its location and everything, it seemed to be wobbling some in its orbit. And scientists figure there must be another planet out there whose gravity is pulling on it, causing it to wobble.
The wobbling led to the discovery of Neptune, but scientists quickly realized Uranus was wobbling too much for just one planet to be the cause. That started the race to discover the mysterious ninth planet. Percival Lowell and Clyde Tombaugh searched for Pluto by taking photos of a certain section of the night sky and looking at every single planet, star, dot, speck of dust on those photos and how they moved from one day to the next.
It was really tedious work. You had to pay attention. If you missed one change of position relative to the other, you missed it.
Schlinder says Clyde Tombaugh would sit in the frigid dome at night with the telescope staring and taking photos of a section of the sky that he hoped Pluto might be in.
They began by looking where Percival Lowell thought a planet might be, and it turns out that's where Pluto was found, even though in hindsight we know that Percival Lowell was looking for a really big planet and Pluto is really small. They didn't find the planet he thought was there, they just happened to find Pluto.
Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto on February 18, 1930. The basic fundamentals of curiosity, discovery, and sitting and staring through a telescope still reign supreme in astronomy today.
A lot does remain the same after 92 years. Fortunately, we have computers and we have better detectors. We don't use photographic plates anymore, and that helps a lot. We can see fainter objects in the solar system with larger telescopes, but the fact that you have to be precise and have attention to detail is something that's never changed.
Astronomers have discovered hundreds of new planets, stars, and galaxies since 1930. And even if Pluto is no longer classified as a planet, Alden Tombaugh, the son of Clyde Tombaugh, considers his father one of the building blocks of modern discovery.
It was kind of like he was one of the bricks of the foundation. So was Percival Lowell, very much so, when he started the observatory here. So that whole get-together of science, planetary discovery, planetary search is extremely important.
Astronomers keep making amazing discoveries every year, and maybe someday a scientist like Tombaugh will discover a ninth and a half planet in our solar system. In Flagstaff, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
The Lowell Observatory says it will continue to celebrate Pluto's discovery every year until the 100th anniversary in 2030.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Break It Down is next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Seaton, a professor at Arizona State University and also a co-host of Break It Down. Today, my guest is Lisa Anderson, and we're going to talk about Black Twitter. So Lisa, how would you define Black Twitter?
So I would define Black Twitter as the part of Twitter where Black people hang out. It's the Black people's community on Twitter. It has all of the foibles and everything that an in-person community might have, except it's on Twitter. And so it becomes this much bigger kind of community because people can be all over the place. They don't have to be like an in-person community. It's irreverent, it's knowledgeable, it's revolutionary, it's all of those things, just like the community.
Yeah, I think that's a great definition. I guess the only thing I would add to that for that community part is Blackness is just at the heart of it, right? It's a space for, Blackness and all of its varied forms, but Blackness is sort of like the beating heart of this community.
Yes.
So what kind of experiences have you had on or watching Black Twitter?
I've been on Twitter for 9 years. And, I really got on initially because I was interested in following protest movements and political things, and very quickly sort of learned that there's more than just the politics to Black Twitter.
Something else that I only recently realized is I've been able to connect with colleagues in other disciplines, Black colleagues specifically in other disciplines that I just wouldn't normally encounter, because our work can be siloed, right? So Black colleagues in STEM, Black colleagues in medicine, Black colleagues in the hard sciences or the humanities. And I really like that aspect of it as well. Because a lot of our colleagues tweet out information about their upcoming books and or manuscripts. I don't do that, but the information itself has just been really, really valuable. I find those connections with Black colleagues across other disciplines.
I agree. I also do that. And I've encountered I think I actually got one of my grad students, there was a call for papers and it was right up their alley. So I sent the call for papers to them. It's a way for me to keep in touch with some of my former grad students because they're on Twitter. And so, we keep those lines of communication open, but discover all kinds of new things by engaging with colleagues that I otherwise wouldn't necessarily have engaged with by being on Twitter.
Right. Yeah, definitely that communal aspect of being academics and being Black academics. A recent experience I had, which is sort of unrelated to being an academic, I watched the Sex and the City reboot. And I had tweeted out about the representation of the Black female professor on the show that I thought it was just unrealistic. The portrayal was unrealistic. And I was shocked at the response I received. So many people liked and or responded and talked about other shows where they felt like the portrayal of Black female academics was unrealistic and possibly harmful. And so again, it wasn't necessarily an academic topic, but in venting my frustration, a lot of other people shared that frustration. And we had a conversation about that, which I thought was like a really great example of how Twitter can be used to have conversations that might not normally happen in the spaces where we find ourselves.
One of my favorite moments, I think, was while How to Get Away with Murder was on, people would live tweet. So that's another thing that happens on Twitter is live tweeting. So people have their particular shows, Insecure, and How to Get Away with Murder, when Scandal was on. I mean, legions of people live tweeting the show and reacting.
Right.
It was like being in a Black movie theater because you get all the commentary that as you're watching. But for me, one of the things that happened was that there's a moment in How to Get Away with Murder that's sort of famous because Viola Davis she takes off her makeup and she takes off her wig, and it's this Black woman moment, and that just lit up Twitter. I mean, people were live tweeting it, of course, but then afterward, the discussions of Black women about the realism of that and how it made them feel was just really, it was exciting and a really great moment and an excellent moment of connection to people that you don't even know.
The live tweeting is another part that I really like about Twitter. And so in addition to the shows, people will live tweet the Versus events. And I don't watch all of the Versus events because I'm not a big hip hop fan. Mm-hmm. But even if I'm not watching the event, I can see the live tweets. People are responding to what's happening in the Versus. So I think the live tweeting is another aspect of Black Twitter that I absolutely love. Do you think there are any downsides to Black Twitter?
Well, there are so many downsides to Twitter in general. I mean, I think I've been pretty lucky that I haven't had any sort of adverse, I haven't, been caught up in any kind of, flame wars or dragging or anything like that. So for me, Twitter's been a positive experience. Right. How about for you? Have you?
Same. Yeah, I haven't had any negative experiences. Again, I try not to have those.
Right.
I will say one positive off the top of my mind. In 2020, there's a Black woman who works in the tech space, and she's working to eradicate racism in the tech space. I have no idea how she found me, but she asked me to be a guest on her podcast, which I did in March of 2020. And we have become friends. We have never met in person because of the pandemic, but we are friends, and so there's no way that she and I could have connected without Twitter or without Black Twitter. But I know that, I think the research suggests that Black women experience a lot of cyber harassment on social media platforms.
Yes.
But so far I've been lucky. So
yeah, I've been lucky. So I have a former student of mine whose work is in whose research is in gaming, actually, who actually has gotten a lot of negative comments, and you have to block people and a lot of harassment. And so it definitely is out there, and it definitely is an issue, especially for Black folks in general, but for Black women, I think in particular.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for joining me for discussing Black Twitter. So now we want to hear from you. What ways do you use digital space to become more informed on Black history, Black culture, and Black identity? Let us know on Instagram at Arizona PBS. We look forward to discussing this with you further.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.